here live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Prep Football Preview presented by FriendshipCars.com. Y'all had to forgive me for these specs. Got a little circle in there. We're back this fall and can't wait for the 2021 high school football season to get started. I'm Kenny Hawkins, and we're in the WJHL Digital Center and News Channel 11 Sports. Jesse Crawl and Michael Epps, like last season, they're joining me. A little different from last year. We were in the studio. Every Thursday night, remember, we're going to bring you a preview of the high school football schedule on Friday night on Facebook and WJHL.com. So make sure to set your reminders. We've got a good slate of Week 1 games to preview. So, with that being said, Michael and
Get at
Jesse.
it.
Let's
Let's
get
go.
after it right
Let's
now.
get this
I think football season's
get this
upon us. Let's
party
go.
started.
Feels
That's
good.
what I'm talking about.
All right, the local rivalry with a brand new name, the Railroad Rumble. Science Hill and Elizabethton, a great way to start the regular season for these two powerhouse teams, and also a brand new location this year because Science Hill is still installing the new turf. They moved in at Kermit Tipton Stadium, and it's not ready because of COVID. It's going to be at ETSU football stadium in what should be a thrilling season opener. Before we
It's
talk
better
about
this
the
one.
matchup itself, let's break down the teams. Let's begin with Elizabethton. This is a team, obviously, that has won 30 in a row, back-to-back state championships. Bryson Rollins still at quarterback. Jake the Snake is back. They had a young kid last year, Nate Stevens, who showed out. I was told that everybody on defense returns. The only spot where there might be problems is on the offensive line.
I mean, that's the point right there. I think they had plenty of size up front, and that's the most important part of, I think, any football team, let alone Elizabethton, where if you're able to keep Bryson Rollins up, he's going to be dangerous no matter who he's playing. You know, they obviously are going to play Science Hill. We'll get to them in just a second. But to be able to have an offensive lineman that's able to keep Bryson Rollins up, I mean, he's able to, find all his weapons. You brought up Jake the Snake. That kid's dangerous. He's the state championship game MVP, so obviously he's going to bring a lot to the table. You brought up Nate Stevens. He's obviously pretty good as well. Cade Russell joins him in the backfield as well. The biggest piece, though, I think we're not hitting on is who they're missing. Parker Hughes, Mr. Football, right. Not being able to bring back him. He's a deep threat weapon that has plenty of speed. Like I said, Jake Roberts will try to fill that hole as best as he possibly can. And if you're able to do that and you're able to protect Bryson Rollins and be able to use the speed that they have, this team's going to be dangerous just like they were last year.
Yeah, and the tough part is with Parker, not only was he great on offense, but you're losing a lot on defense. I mean, he was stout back there in the secondary. He was a ball hawk. I think he got 4 or 5 interceptions last year too, which is really impressive. To see him not out there in the passing game is going to be tough for Bryson Rollins, but of course, he's going to be rolling. He knows how to make plays. Especially with his feet. So he's probably going to be doing that a little bit more, maybe relying on the run game a little bit more than Rollins, just being able to air it out as much as he wanted to. I mean, the offense was unstoppable, but Parker on defense is really a loss that is going to be interesting to see how the secondary can hold up because you're looking at a Science Hill team that can throw the football. Jackson Diamond led the area in passing yards, and so maybe a weaker secondary. We'll see if they're able to replace that, protection from Parker, but I mean Jackson Diamond's going to have a little bit of a easier time than he did last year. He threw a couple interceptions in that game last year, so look for him to maybe be able to exploit that secondary.
Now let's mention that Parker Hughes is not selling popcorn, okay? All right, he graduated. He's headed to Middle Tennessee State University. Here's my question when we talk about Elizabethton. How do you motivate these guys each week? Because right? We know everybody's going to give them their best.
I mean, you already have the motivation right there because these kids know what it's like to win a state title, right? So why would they be content and just be like, all right, well, we can just have a regular season and get bounced in the first, second round? No, these guys know what it's like to be on top, the glory. They own the state. They own the area. The community loves it, right? There are, Cyclone Pride, signs at everybody's front yards in the community. They love it. So I think these kids know that they're ready to go at it and make it happen. They know it's going to be maybe a little bit tougher. They know that they lost some stuff on the offensive line, especially that Cole Morgenstern, a number of guys up front. They know it's going to be tougher, but they're confident. They know they can win.
Now, before the season, we had an opportunity to speak with the Elizabethton Cyclones, and Sean Witten had this to say, not only about his team, but also, the first game of the season.
Most importantly, you win with character, you win with integrity. You got to do the right things all the time. You know, we got to be perfect in every aspect. The road gets tougher. Everything that we want is on the other side of hard. It gets really hard, you know, and just taking them one day at a time, focusing on, you know, getting better.
You got to chase greatness, and that's just what we're doing around here, and that's what Elizabethton's all about, is chasing greatness, and just be able to work on those little things, and be able to help you with the bigger things in the game, and just practicing your mindset and doing that stuff.
Oh, it's very important, you know, have guys like me and Bryson to lead these guys. You know, we've done this 2 years in a row now, so we know what it's like to have that target on our back. You know, we have to work, know that people are coming after us.
Can't have a better, cooler name or a cooler name than the Snake, right? I mean, Jake the Snake. I mean, this guy had a state championship game to remember. There was a statement that Coach just made that I'm going to have to write down, or I'm going to try myself to put it in my memory bank, because I love it. Everything that we want is on the other side of hard. It doesn't get better than that. Are you serious? One team that knows about that is Science Hill. Let's talk about this Science Hill football team. Jesse, this is a team that returns 35 seniors. They're supposed to be good, right?
Yeah, you say they're supposed to be good, and I think that this with this team is that they've lost 3 straight against Elizabethton, so they definitely have that motivation. You bring up those seniors. I think if they're not salty, they should be. This team should be ready to go, be ready to hit the pavement, or I should say pavement, the turf. You know, and this is one of those teams where you have so many weapons. I mean, you do have Jackson Diamond, you have Cole Tolbert, you have, you know, Baylor Brock in the backfield, and you have all these guys. Now, are they being able to put it together? I don't know yet. I mean, this team. I'm not going to say they've done horrible. I mean, they've done solid the past couple of years, but they really haven't put it together as much as people have expected them to. So I think the expectations are there. Now they got to meet them. And are these players going to be able to do that? I don't know. Now, Staci Carter, obviously, you know him longer than I do. He knows how to get his team motivated. He knows what he's doing, obviously. But it's just going to be able to put everything together every single Friday night to live up to those expectations, because this team has something that not a lot of teams have, if any. 35 seniors, I mean, that doesn't happen. I don't know teams other than Dobbins-Bennett last year that kind of had that footing and experience that they have right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do, because Elizabethton, I'm not going to say this game isn't important, but I think Science Hill has more to gain from a victory than Elizabethton does.
Yeah, I feel you, Jesse. I think it was really impressive that Science Hill at least put itself in position for a strong playoff run, and they just weren't really able to execute with that last game, the Bearden. But they went out and they beat Dobbins-Bennett, so they gave themselves a chance to win the region, to get a home playoff game, and they slipped up to Bearden. But it's at least a strong sign that they put themselves in that position, and it was a lot of sophomores and juniors. So the fact that they know, you know, they got a little taste of what it's like to have a comfortable situation. They saw Dobbins-Bennett play at home in the playoffs. They thought it should have been them. They end up having to go on the road to Maryville, and they can't even play the game. They get a COVID outbreak. So that's a brutal way to end the season. I think these guys are hungry to have a better, you know, end of the season. They know that they can accomplish a lot, and it was right there. They felt it, and it just didn't work out. But they have a lot to really gain from this opportunity.
Jesse, let me ask you, does it matter in the fact that they're going to be playing on the ETSU campus at William B. Green Jr. Stadium, not at their home field, Spurrier Field? And the reason why I bring that up is because the crowd is going to be doubled. I mean, it's supposed to be sold out. So we're talking anywhere between 7,000 and 8,000 fans.
And I think that's a big thing right there, because that gives you plenty of motivation if you don't already have enough motivation. And Elizabethton, they have the guys that have been in those big game type situations, and I feel like that experience in those 35 seniors, this is going to help big time with them to be able to have that experience. Because if you go last year, I'm not going to say the moment's too bright for them, but there was a good chance that, you know, these juniors and these sophomores would have faltered under the pressure a little bit. So these juniors and these seniors that, you know, have gain a year of experience from last year, I just think the Science Hill team, they've got such big expectations on themselves, and the community has expectations on them, that they really need to start the year off right with a win over here. Because if they lose to Elizabethton, you know, that's just a salty taste in their mouth, and it's, you know, 0-1 to start off the season.
Yeah, it's tough. You know,
they popcorn for you.
Hey, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of salt.
A lot of salt.
Hey, all I'm saying is that they better be. Give me plenty of juice. Science Hill's one of those teams that, you know, I feel like everyone's putting this pressure on them, and I'm just saying they better be able to live up to it, because, you know, obviously we like our teams doing successful, and there's one team that could have plenty of success this season.
Let me ask you, Michael, before we go to a bite with Staci Carter, let me ask you, Which team has more pressure, Elizabethton or Science Hill?
I mean, Elizabethton, they just won back-to-back state titles. So I don't know if they have as much pressure. They accomplished what they went out for, and obviously they want to do it again. But Science Hill, I can't recall when the last time they won a football state championship. Maybe you know, Kenny, but it certainly hasn't been recently. I know Staci Carter has had success in his coaching career. He wants to make things happen. And, of course, you know, the first year, the Railroad Rumble, it's the official name for the rivalry. So there's the trophy, too. You get a trophy now. That's a ton of motivation. And I think Science Hill is in pretty good position if they feel like they can do what it takes.
Yeah, obviously not in my 35 years. So we've been talking about Staci Carter. He has been the coach there for a long time. Of course, he was at Sullivan South for a while as well. Staci talked about his football team and what to expect this season.
I think that chemistry and how these guys bond together, which they're doing good so far, but we're just starting right now. So hopefully that we'll have good chemistry, that we'll bond together, and these seniors will just take us to a different level.
I just expect a bunch of hungry guys, a bunch of guys that really want to play, that really want to win. You know, guys that come in with the attitude that they want to dominate the game, and you see that throughout all the 36 seniors that we have.
And I think a lot of people think that we're going to do really good, and then, you know, we got some doubters out there, but I mean, I think our main goal is just go out there and have fun and play football. We've all played together since we've been in Pee Wee football, so I think just playing again on the varsity level for the second year in a row would be like we'll all really kind of mesh together again and have a good season.
All right, guys, another great Week 1 tradition pits Kingsport against Bristol. Dobbins-Bennett facing Tennessee High. This year it will be at the Stone Castle. This is a new era for the Vikings. Assistant coach Matt Chandler is taking over for Mike Mays. He still has the interim in front of his name, but they still have that bad taste in their mouth from last year's 35-0 loss to the Indians. Now, we talked about a team that had a number of seniors last year, and that was Dobbins-Bennett. They don't have the seniors this year. What type of team is Joey Christian going to put on the field?
It's going to be a fresh new face. That's what it's going to be. I can tell you that much. They only returned 3 starters from last year, and none of those guys are playing the same position. So I don't know if you want to call it lack of experience or lack of familiarity, whatever you want to call it. This team has it because, I mean, you got 32 seniors that graduated. A lot of talent was leaving this team when you have that type of number. Now, they do have 10 wins. They did have a region championship last year, so these guys know those big-time moments. I'm not going to say, you know, they've got the skill to match it, but it's going to be interesting to see what these guys bring to the table this year. Now, one of the biggest things, and I think Epps could touch on this more because he was at their practice, is the quarterback battle. They've got 2 guys competing for that. They got Jake Carson and Noah Blankenship, who obviously they might be doing the old switcheroo in between games and stuff like that. Like I said, Epps can obviously touch on that more than I can. I wasn't at their practice. But the running back position, which has kind of been held down the last couple of years by Tyler Tesner and Philip Armitage, that's up in the air. They got 4 or 5 guys competing for that position. And I think we all know this. They can put up the points. They're used to doing that. This Dobbins-Bennett team, I mean, we were at games 10, 15 minutes, and we already had 4 highlights just like that because they're able to put up the points and score those touchdowns. So if this Dobbins-Bennett team can kind of get rolling and kind of get their feet wet, I think Joey Christian knows what he's doing when he wants to motivate his players and he's able to get his players ready to play. It's just going to be able to, how long does that take?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Zane Whitson was kind of the guy for 2 years. He was such a stabilizing force for that football team. He was able to make so many plays with his feet as well, and he was just a great leader for the team. He really embodied what they were about. And so now, like you mentioned, Jake Carson, who's tall, he's like 6'3". Joey Christian talked about him as that prototypical pro-style quarterback. He's like 220 pounds. He's huge. And then you have Noah Blankenship, who's transferring from Abingdon. And it's pretty interesting what's happening with him because if he had stayed at Abingdon, he probably would have been the starting quarterback because their starting quarterback, Cole Lambert, he had that knee injury in the baseball season. And so he obviously beforehand, he transferred to Dobbins-Bennett thinking that with Whitson out, he's going to try to get the job. So that's kind of a crazy little subplot there. But I think Carson, they're both pretty good. They look good in practice. But either way, I mean, quarterback's not the only position they got to replace. That running back force with Tesner and Armitage was big time. But, that's a big 6A school. It's a great program. They know how to reload. They did it a few years ago. The big senior class you just talked about, well, Dobbins-Bennett had performed pretty well before they came in, but they came in and reloaded. So I think they know what it takes to come in and take on some new responsibilities.
And, of course, with Joey Christian at the helm, as you guys have talked about, you can never underestimate a Dobyns-Bennett team. Whether they have the firepower that they had last year, they're always going to be dangerous. So you can never count them out. And, of course, we talked to Joey at the beginning of the season about his football team.
The first thing we'll ask our quarterbacks to do is take care of the ball. You know, don't put the ball in peril. We can't turn the ball over. We're never going to be good enough to play to beat the people that we need to beat down the road in the playoffs. Turn the ball over. We need to win the turnover battle, not lose it.
Last year was so complicated with the COVID, and we didn't get that summer, and we didn't really get to build that bond, chemistry between the team. And this year, I think we've really grown. You know, losing a lot of seniors, it's you know, we got to have a lot of make-up time and get kids developed. So
the bond is strong right now. You know, we had all these young guys come in, and you know, the seniors said that we got to keep this team together, and you know, everybody's having fun right now, and everybody loves being out here. You got to have faith in your teammates, especially if they're young and don't have experience. But you know, I think that they played just as hard as the seniors last year, so I'm not worried.
All right, let's take a look at their opponent. Coming up is going to be Tennessee High. We're going to take a look at some highlights against, let's say, Daniel Boone. One thing that we know, Jaden Keller is gone. He's headed to Virginia Tech, and he was their big wide receiver or tight end and also defensive back. But they have a really young quarterback. Well, he's not young anymore, but he started young, returning, and that being under center Johnson. How good can this kid be?
Now you tell
I think he's good. He's good. Go ahead, Jesse.
Now, you talk about Steven Johnson, and, you know, he's one of those guys where I looked on the football field when I went to Tennessee High's practice. I was like, you already know he's the quarterback. I mean, he looks so tall. He looks so big. I think the kid's like 6'5", 6'4", about 200 pounds. So, I mean, just to be able to see him and walk onto the field and be able to just kind of tell, like, hey, this guy commands this team. And they were doing warm-ups. So you could tell, like, this guy, he has that demeanor, and he's already got an offer by Charlotte. And like you just said, he's been starting since last year. You know, he kind of came into an offense. He kind of had to learn it a little bit more. Like I said, get his feet wet. But once he started getting rolling, he was pretty good. And he can let it air out. He's got that big arm mentality, and he's got, you know, he's got the playmakers around him to be able to put up some points. So that'll be interesting as well. But one kid that also stood out to me was Justice Musser, the offensive lineman. He's going to be big for this team to be able to protect Johnson. The kid's 6'6", 225. Wow. Now, obviously, 225, you want to get that up just a little bit more. But when talking to Matt Chandler, he's been going to all these camps, being able to, you know, show his stuff. And I think he's one of those kids that's going to be able to, you know, as the road goes on and as the season goes on, he's going to be able to improve his recruitment. And I think a lot of D1 schools are going to become calling, especially if he's able to get that weight up. But you bring up Matt Chandler. He's been on the staff for 20 years. It's not like they're switching the reins and it's a brand new face, brand new offense, brand new defense. He is defensive minded, but I think it's nice for Tennessee I to be able to go from Mike Mays, who was a staple of this program, to Matt Chandler, who's been with the Vikings for such a long time.
Yeah, a couple things I want to bounce off you, Jesse. Steven Johnson's big time. He's got a lot of raw talent, and I think he turned the ball over a little bit more than he wanted to. I know he would tell you that. I know coaches would tell you that, you know, he has high expectations for himself. He's really talented. He had some solid weapons that he's going to be losing. Not only Keller, like you mentioned, but Bryce Snyder. He was all region. He was kind of like a do-it-all. He wasn't their running back. He played some fullback. He was some tight end. He kind of did it all, and he was a nice force for them on offense and especially on defense. He was a big-time linebacker for them that they're missing. I know that they wanted to end the season a little bit better than they did. That Daniel Boone win was a big-time one early in the season. Then they lost to Greenville at home, which was a stunner. That was right after Drew Gregg got hurt for Greenville, and you know, Brady Quillen, the young QB, came in and won that game. I know that stunned them a little bit. So Chandler, I'm expecting this group to, you know, bounce back, and he's a great motivator. I know you were at the practice, Jesse, and you know, he seemed like he's obviously very into it, but he's all about the Viking family. And he knows how much it means to play at the Stone Castle and all of that. So I think the program's in good hands. It is tough, though, with Mays not at the helm. He was a good coach, and he's still their strength and conditioning coach, I believe. So he's still around, but it's a good football program.
And one thing to keep in mind, Johnson comes from a family, his father played in the NFL. This is a kid that grew up around some NFL greats, Emmitt Smith, Bruce Smith, sack leader at one time, obviously in the NFL. So he knows how the game is supposed to be played. We've been talking about head coach Matt Chandler. You get a win here, maybe they'll take the interim off, but we had a chance to talk to him before the season began, and here's what he had to say about his team.
I'm very excited. I like this team a lot. I feel like we can be balanced. I feel we're big up front. I hope we can run the football. I feel like we can. Stephen has worked so hard, Stephen Johnson, in the offseason. He's gotten bigger. He's gotten stronger. I'm excited about him.
For it to be anybody, I'm glad it's Coach Chandler. I love him. He brings it every day intensity-wise, and I feel like practice has stayed the same consistently as what it was with Coach Mays, and I feel like that's all that we could have asked for.
It's been amazing. You know, he's everything that we've wanted. He brings the intensity every day, and he knows us, so he knows the button to push to get us to be better, and it just helps everybody out here.
All right, guys, our next Week 1 matchup we certainly haven't seen before, a 5A and a 2A matchup with Daniel Boone and South Green. Despite the class difference, it's tough for anybody to go into Rebel territory or on Rebel Hill and win a game. I don't think they've lost in I see it. They haven't lost since 2018, Week 3 of 2018. Let's talk about South Green. I mean, basically, this is a team that really lost no one, and, of course, the key guy under center returns.
Oh, Luke Myers. The kid's an absolute genius with the football, whether it's through the air or on the ground. I'm not going to say, no one else matters, but, I mean, this kid brings so much to the table, and when you look at Mr. Football finalists or anything like that, we didn't get to see the others, but I thought he was going to win it. I really did, for how much he meant to his team and to this program, and for them to be able to break so many school records. He was the focal point of this whole offense, and it's truly amazing. And I think the biggest story of this whole team is they returned 10 starters on offense. So essentially, they put up a lot of points last year, and they're about to do it again. Now, I don't think they're going to surprise as many people as they did last year. And I was talking to Sean Jones. They had that underdog mentality. Every single time I went out there last year, they kind of had that underdog mentality. Everyone's overlooking us. Everyone's looking past us. But now I think a good sound, I don't know if we're going to go to it. I don't think we have it in there. But the soundbite it's truly incredible. Well, one of the soundbites he said, he goes, we went from being one of those games that you X off on the calendars, the ones that you're being circled. That's the type of mentality that you got to have, and now they did that from this year to this season, or from last season to this season. So for them to be able to put up the points like they did last season going into this season, I think that's going to be crucial. And the biggest focal point, obviously, is Myers.
Yeah, I mean, the highlights we're watching right now is that Hampton game, right? And that was the one circled on the calendar all year. We knew that these two teams were the best in Region 1 2A. The winner was going to win the conference. And Luke Myers got that game-winning touchdown right there as you're watching. It was pretty remarkable. I think you were at that game, Jesse. It was pretty incredible to see that heroic effort. It seemed like it was a back-and-forth game. He ended up being a Mr. Football finalist. He lost it to Will Meadows, who's from Meigs County, who they ended up losing to in the state quarterfinals. And that Will Meadows, he was a big-time back. But he's gone. So Myers, you would think, is probably going to be a finalist or at least semifinalist, and probably going to be a finalist again. It'll be interesting to see if Connor Jones could also be a semifinalist. I mean, it felt like the winner of that game, whoever could put his team ahead, was probably going to have a good chance at being a finalist. And obviously it was Luke Myers there. But to think that they haven't lost at home in 3 years is pretty crazy. Sean Jones, he's doing a really great job with this program. And, they were saying last year how it felt like they came around early. They knew they were going to be good in 2021. They didn't know they were going to be that good in 2020 until they went out there. They powered through a weird COVID summer, and they went out there and they had no COVID interruptions the entire season. They played all 12, 13 games without any interruptions. So it was good to see that. Only a few teams had no COVID interruptions, which was pretty nice to see out of them.
And no one sleeping on South Green this year. The aforementioned Sean Jones, here's what he had to say about his team.
We snuck up on people last year. Now we got a big X on our back because, we got everybody coming back. We had a great year. So we tried to, let everybody know and let the team know that, hey, it's going to be tough this year. Schedule changed a little bit. Some people dropped us. We picked up some tougher teams.
Right. I think that was definitely on our side. So I should be in the underdog. But like Coach Jones said, this year we're, got more of an X on our shoulders. So we got to come into games ready to play, and even for, teams we expect to win, we got to come out and play for those games too.
To not have individuality, like I said, we have to play as a team. Last year our egos kind of took us. That was one of our main downfalls. And I guess in the heat of the moment, I mean, even when we're down, we need to stay in the game. We need to come together and do our thing.
All right, let's take a look at this Daniel Boone team. We just talked about it. They're a 5A team going against a 2A team. So, on paper, they're supposed to win. This is a Daniel Boone team that lost a lot of players last season as well. But one thing we know, Coach Jenkins always reloads, so they'll be tough again.
They're going to be tough. And I think when you look at last season, the schedule, I was just kind of taking a glance at it, and anyone can do this, but there were a possession or two away from having 8 wins versus 5. So, I mean, when you have a team like that has that type of experience and that type of will and determination, that really doesn't go away, especially with a coach like Jenkins. But they did lose 22 seniors. I mean, that's going to be tough on any team. And they've only got 7 seniors this year. So not a lot of depth for the upperclassmen. So the juniors are going to have to step up. The sophomores are going to have to step up. But they do return quarterback Caleb Worley. They got the tight end, defensive end, Will Hamlin. So that guy's obviously, those 2 guys are obviously going to be big for this team. But I think the biggest factor there is, unfortunately, the people that they're missing. I mean, you got Brendan Blair, who was News Channel 11 Player of the Week, a couple weeks into the season. Jackson Jenkins was under center, Coach Jenkins' kid. And then Devon White, who was also running back. Not a lot of production from him since he had that injury early in the season. But to be able to miss those 3 guys in the locker room is crucial on and off the field.
Yeah, and Coach Jenkins was talking about the quarterback position. With Caleb Worley coming back, he played some each of the last 2 years when Jenkins had a little injury a couple years ago. And then, so Worley played pretty well at the quarterback position in a couple games he was in. But Jenkins was also really high on Aiden Reiner and Luke Jenkins, who are 2 other younger quarterbacks who are kind of pushing Worley because Worley's really good out in space. He's a very good playmaker. He played some wide receiver for them, really good catching passes from Jackson Jenkins. So Worley is going to probably be the starter week 1, but, I mean, it wouldn't be surprising to see them also run some sets to get him out in space and get one of the other younger quarterbacks. He liked Aiden Reiner and his speed. So if Worley can get out and make some plays, they're going to need him because they're also losing Phillip Page, who was another playmaker for them. I mean, you're seeing him right there. He was the guy who caught the game-winning touchdown in that game against Greenville. A big-time emotional win for that program. And I know they wanted to do more after that. They had some tough losses, including the Musket Bowl loss that was broadcasted on our air on News Channel 11. And I think they have a lot more that they feel like they can accomplish. And it starts with beating probably the favorite to win, at least make it to the state championship game in South Green. Even though it's 2A, it's a very talented team. They know they can get their season started right here.
Yeah, big win last year for Daniel Boone by beating Greenville, and then they almost got the win over Elizabethton. We talked to Coach Jenkins. Here's what he had to say about his team.
Got a really good quarterback, a high potent offense. They got some good-sized kids, and it's a great atmosphere to go play. Then Rebel Hill will be going crazy down there. They really do a good job of backing their football program. So, we're just excited to get to go down there and to play in that atmosphere. We used to play them a lot.
Well, it's about the opposite. Last year we had almost seniors and juniors in every position. This year we got a lot of our defense back, but offense is super young, and we know that. And me and Peyton, got to be leaders, got to step up because we haven't really had to step up. We've had people like Devon and Brendan Blair from last year's to be leaders, and we just got to step up. But it's a fun challenge.
Very excited. Been a long off season. I feel like last year with COVID and stuff, it almost feels like a longer break because season came so fast. But I'm just happy to be out here.
Now, guys, for the first time in a while, we'll see a brand-new team take the field on Friday night in Northeast Tennessee. It's finally time to see the new West Ridge football team take the field after consolidation from South, North, and Central. The new 6A school will take on Volunteer. We don't know anything about this team, but we are familiar with some of its players. Let's talk about West Ridge. Let's begin with their quarterback, Bergeron. We knew him from South last season.
Kid's a big hulking kid. I mean, he can get it done no matter if he's passing or running the ball. And he's just one of those guys that's able to tough to take down. You brought up what we don't know about this team. I can tell you this. A lot of kids, over 90 kids on this roster, and I think that makes sense when you bring in 3 schools. it's going to happen like that. But that's truly incredible to be able to get that many kids out there. And I just think you can see him right there, Justin Hilton. He's able to, I think he's licking his chops. He's ready to go. He's excited about this season. And you bring up Bergeron, obviously he's going to be a focal point of this team. But linebacker Eli Toppin's going to be huge. Fletcher Gibson on the offensive line. Isaac Haney outside on the wide receiver role. Those guys are going to be crucial for this team. But I think we have some kids that are going to kind of take the spotlight. You know, there's teams, I'll be honest, North and Central didn't have the best records. So I think we weren't able to see a lot of those kids, but kids from that team are going to be able to come over to Westridge, be able to shine, and be able to get their name out there.
Yeah, I kind of wonder, like, how fascinating would it have been if, like, Will Nottingham was only a junior? You know, if he came in, then it's like a Central versus South, like, quarterback battle. That would have been kind of interesting, but it's good that, you know, Ethan Bergeron's going to come in and take care of the job. I'm a big Eli Toppin fan. I mean, he's a guy that really loves to get in there, and he likes to make it dirty. He loves to, you know, just wreak havoc on the quarterback. He had 8 sacks and a ton of tackles for loss. So he's a big-time add for them. South had a lot of guys like that. Jacob Bradley, who was good, and Noah Drumright. So South, I think they're bringing a lot of that mentality, that toughness. South really showed up the last couple of years. They won a playoff game 2 years ago, and last year I know they wanted to play better than they did in their final season, but they had a couple brutal tasks going up against Elizabethton and Greenville there in 4A. So they have another tough task here going up to 6A. They have Science Hill in a couple weeks. They face Boone next week and then Science Hill. So tough start for Westridge, but it'll be interesting to see what they're made of.
Listen, I don't know who 78 was, but he looked like a condominium there. That's a big old kid. I'm just telling you right now. They're taking on a volunteer team. This was a team that was pounding ground last season. You know, we heard from their coach, and not the same really this year. I think they're going to put the ball in the air more than they did last season.
I think the big thing with Jesse McMillan, too, is when talking to a couple of these players, and you can kind of see it the way he carries himself in practice, is that he's trying to get rid of that volunteer way. Now, people might be wondering, why get rid of a tradition? Why get rid of the way? Well, let's be honest. There wasn't a lot of winning in those ways, in that tradition. So he's trying to get rid of that volunteer way, that volunteer mentality that's been kind of weighing them down the past couple of seasons. And he's going to tell it straight up. I mean, he's one of those coaches where he's not playing games. He's not going to mess around in practice or anything like that. And I think it's crucial that these Falcons have Garrison Barrett under center. Obviously, we did one of his broadcasts. He was shining all last season. I think they're playing Daniel Boone, and that kid can just air it out. And he's one of those, like I said, he's like Ethan Bergeron. He's a big hulking figure that's hard to take down, and he's got a couple of weapons out there. He's got Andrew Knill and Heath Miller, not the wide receiver not the tight end from the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he's got those two guys to able to air it out. Now we did lose Cameron Johnson, last season, who was one of our players of the week as well. But Garrison Barrett, watch this kid shine. You will not be surprised by this kid because he's a star on the basketball court, but I can guarantee you he's going to be a star on the football field this season.
Yeah, I like volunteer a lot. I know that's a good point that you brought up, Jesse, changing the volunteer way, because especially when they were in 5A last year, you got to be able to move the ball through the air. You got to be able to play fast, and they just haven't done that a lot lately. They were losing the Battle of Hawkins County a lot, but they ended up winning that one last year against Cherokee. That was a huge, huge win for McMillan in his second year. And they had a 2-2 start, and then you lose 5 straight. This was a big win they had against East, and then the Cherokee win. After that, 5 straight losses. So I know that they want to definitely not do that, and they think that they can not only rely on Barrett at the quarterback position, but Cameron Johnson's that guy. I mean, he had 12 touchdowns, rushed for 1,000 yards. He's a big-time running back, one of the best running backs certainly that we have in this area. Now they moved down to 4A, so they have tough games against Elizabethton and Greenville, and then they have Seymour and Granger now in their conference as well as East. So those are going to be tough games to have to play East, to have to play Elizabethton and Greenville every year. But they like moving down the 4A. I think it gets them some more flexibility with their schedule, and that'll be an interesting adjustment for them.
Yeah, but that's one of those situations where, and excuse me if I'm wrong, but I think they only have one winning season in school history. And basically what you're doing is you're going from the frying pan into the fire, right, when you go down to 4A, because now you got to deal with teams like Elizabethton and Greenville. And, of course, we certainly wish them the best. Our next game, the Borough Boys of David Crockett had a pretty fun last few years. I mean, why not? Some of the greatest players that ever come through that program. The Pioneers look to replace their superstar presence of, as we know, know Prince Colley, who's now at Notre Dame, and others when they take the field against Sullivan East tomorrow night. David Crockett, no Prince Colley. What is next for Chandler?
Let's just say Prince Colley was the king of that program. He was no prince on there, man. He was the king of the gridiron over there. And I think we're going to learn a lot about what this coaching staff can bring to the table. And not to say they're not good coaches, but when you have a guy like Prince Colley, hey, it's 3rd and 5. Let's just give it off to Prince. Hey, it's 1st and 10, and we're on the 20-yard line. Let's just do a fly route to Prince, see if he can get up and get it. Now, I'm not going to say there's not bad players on this team. I'm not taking anything away from any of the other players. But when you have a 4-star recruit turn into a 5-star recruit in some aspects, it's pretty easy to get away with some stuff. So David Crockett, I think they're going to be interesting to see what they have this season. I think what needs to happen with them, they just need to keep the momentum they had from the regular season last year. They started off slow, dropped their first 2 games, and then they just won out and unfortunately dropped in the playoffs. But if you're able to keep that momentum rolling like they did in the middle of the regular season towards the end, I think that'll be crucial for this team. And they have plenty of guys from this team that have plenty of experience, that are able to get work done, and it'll be interesting to see how well they adapt from Prince Colley.
Yeah, Brendan Reed's going to be their new big-time playmaker that they're going to rely on a ton. You mentioned Prince, but also Mason Britton's gone at quarterback, so they need to replace their quarterback position. I know they have I believe he's a junior that they're pretty comfortable with. I can't recall his name, but he's going to be a guy that has had some solid tutelage lately with Cade Larkins a couple of years ago and Mason Britton last year. So Brendan Reed's going to be their guy. You're going to hear his name a lot, scoring touchdowns. They're kind of reeling from losing Volunteer in 5A. They have a really funky schedule. They had to pick up an extra non-conference game. They had a lot of trouble finding non-conference games. They have to play Letcher County Central in Kentucky, and also another team from North Carolina, as well as Richlands from Virginia. So they have 4 different teams, 4 different states on their schedule, which is kind of crazy. I know Hayden Chanley was talking about that and how that's kind of annoying for them, but they got to take what they can get. And Chanley's been doing a solid job with this program. That's winning the region now 2 times in his first 3 years. So a strong start for him, and they're hoping they can keep that going, even though they do lose those superstars.
Have to get one of those neck pillows, when you sleep, because it looks like they're going to be doing a lot of traveling this year. Yeah. They say if you look good, you play good. Maybe the same goes if you have a brand-new field, and that's what's going on at Sullivan East. The Patriots finally have a brand-new field. Is this the year that we see more out of this Sullivan East football team?
Hey, that turf looks good. Let's just be honest right there. If you guys are able to get out to a game, that looks phenomenal. Not saying, the field didn't look bad before, but it looks just
I called it the
better.
Patriot Pasture, so I don't know what I'm going to call it now. I'm going to have to find a new name.
Hey, no pasture here. That looks nice, man. But, yeah, this Sullivan East team, they made some plays last year. They had some good players. The names escaped me, I'm going to be honest with you, unfortunately. But Player of the Week last year, we had one of them from Sullivan East. Yep, the quarterback. And, they're able to get it done, but it's one of those things where they haven't really been able to piece things together. They've been, the highs are the high and the lows are the lows. And if you're able to bring that together, it'll be interesting to see what this Patriots team can do. But, JC obviously knows what he's doing over at Sullivan East. Great coach. Love talking to him. Absolute amazing man. He's relaxed but also intense at the same time, if that's even possible. I know some coaches, are either, all laid back or they're all intense. So JC Simmons, he knows what he's doing over there. We're all cheering for every single team that we have in this area, but especially him, knowing that he's just taken over, a program a couple of years ago. So to be able to get these Patriots rolling, I think it's going to be kind of fun to see the energy from the new turf and the new stadium.
Yeah, I know he's a younger guy, so he's a huge motivator. He's a guy that, is kind of getting in their faces a little bit as far as the players, but they love that. The players really like it. They've really connected with him on an emotional level. Older coaches are, great. They have that experience, but there's something about that younger coach that they can relate to a little bit more, and he's really kind of lit a fire under them. When I was there for practice, he was lighting into them. He didn't like how his guys showed up in the tough games against the Elizabethtons. And, obviously it's tough to expect to win that game. Elizabethton won the state championship, but you like to see a little bit more progress in that game, which he didn't see, but he's hoping to see that this year. They had that good win against Johnson County that we saw the highlights of, but they had COVID that kind of interrupted what they were building there for a couple weeks. It's a new opportunity to go, and they have a new field to try and make a splash here against a good David Crockett team.
Let me see, the Patriot plastic. No, I can't do that. Patriot.
That's just
turf.
disrespectful out there.
I'm going to have to find a name, okay? That's before the season begins. All right, let's move on. Well, we got two teams in our last matchup. Two teams that really have nowhere to go, really, but up. Unaka and North Green really didn't have the season that they wanted. One team, though, has been on the uptick for a couple of years, that being the Rangers. Let's talk about Unaka. Here's the thing. They don't have a lot of kids out. In fact, they were hoping to have like 25, 27 the last time I heard from Coach. That's not a lot of kids, and that means everybody's going to play both ways.
Hey, you and I can suit up. Let's go. If Coach
they'll-
needs
they'll
us,
want me out there.
let's go after that. But you talk about the kids, that there's not a lot of kids on this roster, but the kids that are coming back, they're great. I mean, they've got solid experience. And I think that's crucial for a team, like you said, that's on the uptick, because when you have that experience, you're not making those silly mistakes. You're not making those rookie mistakes that can shoot any team in the foot. And when you're able to bring back guys in crucial positions, that's important for any team. And I think Unaka, it might be surprising for some of these kids, but if they just get rolling a little bit, they're going to be able to find success because they aren't making those silly mistakes that a year ago or 2 years ago when they were underclassmen, that they're going to surprise themselves and say, hey, I used to do this, but now I'm in this situation. I'm not, going under pressure and blowing it, honestly. And that's just what this team, isn't looking forward to, because they know what they're doing. They know that, they have got some pressure on themselves, obviously not the pressure of, state championship teams, but they know the senior class is senior laden, and they know they have a lot of experience on this team.
Yeah, they felt really good about hosting a playoff game. I think it was maybe their second time in program history that they've hosted a playoff game. Really hype moment for them. They lost that one to Greenback, who's a really strong 1A powerhouse. But they felt like that was a big step forward. And you got both Ramseys back. You got Landon throwing the ball. Devin right there is catching, who is a little bit of a smaller guy, but he has this insane speed. I mean, you cannot let him get in open space. He's a legit threat at wide receiver. And Landon, his brother, he can get him the football. So they have a pretty solid kind of system going. O'Brien Bennett, he's doing a good job with that program, and he loves those Ramsey kids. He knows he can rely on them, and they're going to win some games and hopefully win a playoff game. That's their main goal there in Stony Creek.
You got to watch out for those guys that have two names that are like last names. O'Brien Bennett. You got to watch those guys, okay? They're sneaky. They can coach, though. They're sneaky. They can coach. Let's talk about North Green. This is a team that's basically brand new, right? Kind of some changes at the top. And this is a team that really desperately wants to turn its program around in football to be able to keep up with the volleyballs and the basketball team, both basketball teams over in that area, which tells me they got some athletes at North Green.
Oh, if you're able to bring those athletes over to the football field, it'll be exciting nonetheless. But you bring up the new head man, new head coach. Honestly, this guy's a globetrotter. I'm just going to put it that way. If I can remember correctly, I'm going to run down the list quick. I mean, this guy's from Greenville, Greene County. I'm pretty sure he played in Poland and then coached in Germany, and, has been everywhere that, you can think of that has football, at least. You can, America and Europe. But he also has this mentality that losing isn't going to be an option for this North Green team. They're just going to be able to, they got to work at it. Let's just be honest. You got to work at it. You got to get those mistakes out. You got to be able to get those kids growing, whether it's in the weight room or on the field, or get that chemistry up. No matter what it is, there's something there that it's missing. Now, obviously, we're not part of the team, so we don't know what it is. Now, I think the biggest aspect that was missing from last year is the points. They got to put up the points because, offense wins games, defense wins championships. Whatever mentality you need for this team, that's what they got to bring to the table.
Yeah, they didn't score. You're right. They didn't score as many points. They scored, what was it? It was less than 100 points. Yeah. But Eric Tilson, he's good. He's a Emory and Henry guy, which is a football program that has respect around here, right? They win games. They've won ODAC championships, and now they're moving up to D2. So that's a strong place to come from if you're talking about football programs. And they know that they have to play better. They know they have some tough games on their schedule, but they have some athletes. They looked pretty good in their two-a-day stuff. Tilson's he's grinding on those guys. He knows how to work hard, right? He's traveled. He knows different ways to do things. So he's kind of bringing a new mentality there up to Belton. And he's good. We'll see.
Yep, Belton. Remember his Belton.
I went half and half.
That's what they call it.
I said Belton.
I
can't say Baileyton.
I know the sign says Baileyton, but it's Belton. over in those parts. Hey, look, folks. We are over about 40 minutes. That's what happens when you get us talking football, right?
Week
you can't
one.
squeeze us. You can't put baby in a corner. You can't squeeze us into a box. I think we're going to be able to do it in 30 minutes. So, we went a little over, and I think that's because all three of us are excited for high school football to get underway. We want to say thanks for watching the Prep Football Preview brought to you. Thank you, friendshipcars.com. Make sure to watch us again every Thursday right here for a preview of the week's games. Next week, we'll be including some Virginia games in this show as well. That's right. We'll have even more games next week, folks. Week 1, a touchdown Friday nights, tomorrow night. So check out highlights of these games and more tomorrow night. For J.C. Crawl and Michael Epps, I'm Kenny Hawkins. Thanks, and have a great night.